Welcome to Ninerology, Faithful in the Trenches. I'm your host, Alan, and we're here to talk about the 2024 kickoff rule change that has just been implemented that the owners voted 29-32 in favor of to be able to implement the XFL rules and how they approach kickoffs to really bring more excitement. Now, we're going to talk about how does this benefit the 49ers. Can Christian McCaffrey now be the 49ers' new punt returner or kickoff returner? And what about Deebo? Is Deebo now going to be a kickoff returner on a regular basis? Well, first off, why did they do this? Well, if you look at 2023, 22% of kickoffs were actually returned. That means 78% were either went through the end zone as a touchback, maybe went out of bounds, or just there was no attempt to go ahead and take it out of the end zone. So the NFL really needed to find a way to bring back that competitive part of the game, to really bring that excitement. But they also want to stay true to player safety and such, which is a topic for a different day. So they thought, you know what, this will bring excitement. It's a change. It is definitely a big change. But you look at the Super Bowl, 13 of the kickoffs, none of them were returned. So the NFL is like, we need to do something about this. So we're going to talk about how does that benefit the Niners, but let's look at the rule changes real quick. Now, the kickoff team, it's still going to be kicking off from the 35-yard line, so that doesn't change, but there's some big changes coming up. The big one is 10 members of the kicking team will line up on the receiving team's 40-yard line. Why is that a difference? Because initially, they were 25 yards further back. They started off on the 35-yard line, which means as soon as the ball was kicked, they got to get a full head of steam to go down. They wanted to prevent those head injuries, those full-on concussion hits. So what they did was they moved them to the 40-yard line of the receiving team's field. So the next thing is, if you're the receiving team, you need to have at least 9 members of the receiving team lined up between the 30 and 35-yard line, which makes it really kind of cool because you can go ahead and make some fun formations. I assume that this is going to be big for Kyle Shanahan, who's now going to want to be part of the game planning specifically for the receiving end, maybe getting some of his offensive genius onto that side of the ball. But now you can have 2 returners on a regular basis, which you always could, but now it's a bigger emphasis. I can see Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel being back there on a regular basis as your regular go-to kick returners. That also means you probably don't have to pay as much for a specialist role specifically for kick returner. Now, you might end up paying them more based on them having an additional role. In fact, you might see some of those other special team roles change a bit. You might see more offensive linemen there on that side of the ball. So we'll see what happens there. The next rule change is now there's a thing called a landing zone, which is essentially the red zone, but for kickoffs. That means the play begins when the ball is either caught or it hits the ground. How is this a difference? Well, with current kickoffs, or now the past kickoffs, if you are the kickoff team, you can start running as soon as the kicker kicks the ball. Now, you can't run at all. You line up on the receiving team's 40, and essentially the ball is in play when it's either caught, it hits the ground on the landing zone, or is returned from the end zone. So that's a big change. There's no more fair catches, so that's out of here. But onside kicks happen, but they only happen in the fourth quarter. And so there are those things. Set up in landing zones don't change after penalties or safety. Only the spot where the ball is kicked changes. If the ball goes out of bounds, so onto the side, so they don't keep it down the pipe, the receiving team gets it on the 40-yard line. That is still the same rule, so that's carried over here. If the ball enters the end zone in the air, the receiving team can either return it or down it and take it at the 30-yard line. Very similar to what's in play now. So some big changes, but I think for the 49ers, this really kind of helps Kyle Shanahan. It helps the offensive lot because now you can put more of your playmakers there. And also, you don't have to worry as much about them being injured. Of course, you can get injured on any type of play. But specifically, now with having the kickoff team being much closer, but also they're much closer to your blockers, you can really start implementing some schemes and different other things on special teams to really set your offense up for success. I see a lot more kick returns happening for touchdowns with this new setup, which makes the game much more exciting. And again, I see Deebo Samuel, I see Christian McCaffrey being huge stars in this new role. Now, we'll see what Kyle Shanahan ends up doing. My guess is, again, he's going to have his hands inside of those schemes. Instead of leaving that off to the special teams, he's going to be heavily involved in that. And you know what? That just brings out more value to Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, which is what you want. You want to get the ball in their hands as often as possible and be able to do that from the beginning and throughout the game, an extra few touches a game. I think is going to pay off dividends. And so huge for Christian McCaffrey, Deebo, and the 49ers. Even though they're one of the 3 teams that voted against this, I think it's going to end up helping them in the long run. And we'll see what it does. I think it's going to make the game more exciting. So if you're curious, let's go ahead and see your comments. Comment below on what you think about the new rule changes and let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And we'll catch you next time on Niner All.